on MMA Junkie Radio with Gorgeous George and Go. This is what we do and why we do it, baby. We rollin'!
Covering MMA from all over the world, this is the premier stop for all your combat sports needs. MMA Junkie Radio, the only show broadcasting live from the Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino in the fight capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. The lights are on and the mics are hot. It's time to get your MMA fix, junkies. Take it away, Big John.
Gorgeous George and Goes, are you ready? Junkie Nation, are you ready? Well, let's get it on.
From the fight capital of the world, inside the beautiful Mandalay Bay Racing Sportsbook, you are listening to the MMA Junkie Radio Show, the only show that matters. I'm your host, Gorgeous George. With me, as always, is not the Goes. He's at Tuesday Night Contender Series, but stepping in is boxing and MMA legendary cutman Stitch Duran. Hello, Stitch.
I don't hear him.
Wait, raise up 4, please. Raise up 4.
Oh, 4. That's what happened. Okay,
he did a switcheroo, right?
There we
Stitch? Go. Raise up 5. How about now?
Test.
There he is. There's Stitch
anyway,
Duran. Okay.
yeah, thanks for having me on, man. I was just left the theater, went to go watch The Lion King with my grandkids.
3D.
In 3D, man. I tell you what, I was impressed.
Put your name on it? You like it?
I liked it, man.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, just the animation is gone from what it was 10 years ago to what it is now, but it's a good show.
Straight from the movies, here to co-host MMA Junkie Radio. And then we got Richard Hunter from the Phone Booth Fighting Podcast. He is going to be producing and also co-hosting with us. So there you have it. There's the dais. On today's show, we're also going to be talking to Joey Periotti, hopefully I pronounced his name right. Fights for CFFC. He actually headlines that card back east in about 10 days or so. So we'll talk to him, and Ed Ruth from Bellator will stop by the studio as well. So it's going to be some fun times here. We'll cover the latest news, chop it up, and we'll take calls as well. If you want to call in, it's 877-FIGHT-93, 877-344-4893. Also hit us up on Twitter at MMA on SiriusXM. So, without further ado, I think Andre's already telling me that we have a caller. So let's do that. Who do we got, Andre? They've been waiting since the prior show, huh?
Yeah, we have Bernie from Staten Island that wants to talk to you.
What's up, Bernie? How you doing?
Bernie's not on the line.
There's some mistake. My name is Herb.
Herb. Okay, what's up, Herb?
Yes, I would like to focus in on the past 15 years of MMA, mixed martial arts, presentation, competing with professional boxing. I'm not mistaken, is that Mr. Duran right next to you?
It is. How you doing, my man? What's up, Herb?
My man, we're not getting too chummy right away here. It's the first time I met you.
Well, it's a pleasure.
Getting back to the mixed martial arts situation, why hasn't Dana White, why hasn't he promoted two concerns from opposite ends of the spectrum? Why hasn't he created a fight, old school style, between Anderson Silva and Vanderlei Silva? Why hasn't that commenced?
Well, I'm not sure I got the question, though. Why hasn't he what? Why hasn't Dana White what, Herb?
From Princeton. Promoted a match between
with Vanderlei Silva
from opposite ends of the spectrum.
All right, Vanderlei Silva is now with Bellator, and he won't co-promote with another promotion. If he was still with the UFC, those two would probably not fight because Anderson Silva always looked to him as a mentor. In fact, when he received one of his World MMA Awards for Fighter of the Year, he actually said that he really acknowledged Vanderlei Silva. So I just don't see that Anderson Silva would fight Vanderlei Silva unless they were both at the top of the game, the middleweight division, and they both were fighting for a title. Then maybe. money changes things, but I think that's basically a reason.
And, as I was walking to the studio, I was thinking about the legendary fighters, Vanderlei Silva, all the Brazilian fighters, Randy Couture, Chuck Liddell, BJ Penn. These are the guys that were instrumental in when I was with the UFC. And that's what made the UFC. These were the building blocks. And those great fights at that time, Herb.
Yeah.
They also never really crossed paths at a time where the clamoring for the matchup because of any title implications would have been so loud that it would have been of consequence. If you think about, because Vanderlei was at light heavyweight and in the middleweight, and he was busy matching up with Rampage Jackson and some of those fights. So when Anderson had his reign, I don't think Vanderlei ever, by that point, was ever really seriously contending at middleweight.
Right, because remember, Anderson also stepped away. For one, he got the leg break.
Yeah.
That was like a good 9 months.
Yeah.
And then he had a suspension that he had to serve. So he, by then, just wasn't a contender. And then Vanderlei just came down to dabble. A couple 85 fights.
Yeah.
But then that was it. He was basically off to Bellator.
And they were both kickboxers before they were MMA fighters. So how would you have seen that fight? Stand-up kickboxing?
Yeah,
Vanderlei just going
they
at
would
it
have stood
toe-to-toe?
up, and they were both from the same shoot box gym in Curitiba, Brazil, but just different. I think just Vanderlei was just a little bit older, but I know Anderson looked up to him a lot.
Yeah.
So
I could have seen Anderson being more tactical in that fight.
You'd have to be.
Yeah. Vanderlei was the berserker.
You don't want to firefight with him. Yeah.
Silva maybe out on the perimeter. Counter punching.
Right. So Andre the Giant, his name was Herb from Princeton. Is that what he said at the end?
I believe so.
And Andre the Giant told us it was. What was the first name he gave us?
Herb.
Bernie from Staten Island.
Bernie from Staten Island.
Number.
You might want to clear your ears, man. You didn't get that one right.
My bad. And also Josh said it was Bernie, so I totally bought in.
All right.
All right.
I just like busting balls anyway. All right. Well, there you go. And if you want to follow Herb, Bernie, Irv, whoever, again, it's 877-FIGHT-93, 877-344-4893. Speaking of Staten Island, speaking of New York, there is a big news story. It hasn't really caught fire like I thought it would. I saw it first thing in the morning. I woke up, checked the phone, and it says, rematch for Conor McGregor versus Jose Aldo in the works for UFC 244 in New York. And I was like, whoa. Wow. Sometimes when you check the news, when you wake up, and then there's just something where you're like, okay, stop everything. And this was something that was just kind of floating around on Twitter. But I want to give people the credit if they wind up deserving it, if this comes to fruition. I think it's still in the rumor stage. GiveMeSport.com is where I'm reading it, and they sourced at Talk MMA, who I've seen on Twitter before, producing news or rumors or whatever. Anyway, but it's believable. They fought once before, and both guys are basically oversized featherweights. Conor moved to lightweight a few years ago, but Aldo always teased wanting to do that. And because he's out of the picture, Holloway wins again. So, remember, Jose Aldo would have held some cards. If Edgar would have won, hey, I beat that guy twice.
Yeah.
But Frankie Edgar lost to Max Holloway, so I think Jose Aldo maybe said, okay, maybe this is the time to try 55. But what are your thoughts on a fight like that in New York?
It's a redemption, right, for Jose Aldo.
Yeah.
And but you know
seconds.
what? On the marketing aspect, and I always look at it, but on the competitive side, I think that's a good fight. Let's make it. But you're talking about marketing. What Conor McGregor had done when he got in trouble in New York, I think is only going to make him another legend in New York during that.
The
fight.
Dolly,
of course. I think it's only going to help him out.
Yeah, that was crazy.
It was crazy. Of
can't
course.
believe that was like about 2 years ago now.
But does the commission give him a license?
Yeah, he already, for one, he cleared his name on the criminal side. He actually had to pay a fine, and he had to go out there and do some community service. And so he has already done all that, everything they've asked of him. Now, that commission's pretty strict, but I think as long as he did everything he needed to do to clear his name on the criminal side, I don't see why they wouldn't grant him one as long as he's served his suspensions and paid his fines. So I could see that fight happening there. Remember, Conor McGregor for the UFC is either a Vegas product or a New York City product.
Exactly.
He wanted a stadium show in Dublin for the longest time, but they couldn't get that one going. And then everywhere else in the world just wouldn't be as lucrative as either New York City or Las Vegas. So when you see that, it's believable. When you see Jose Aldo, and then you think real quick, wait, Max, okay, Jose, yeah, okay, it's all believable. What do you think, Richard?
It makes some sense, certainly because of the history between the two of them. But I think when you consider the fact that Conor not only won the lightweight title, but was stripped of it rather than losing it due to inactivity. And, of course, he did just recently lose a title shot to Khabib Nurmagomedov. But it's hard to take Conor primarily out of the lightweight title equation. It seems like, here is a guy who is not only
because of his popularity, right?
Well, not only popularity, but where he left off. I mean, he left off. Of course, his most recent appearance was losing to Khabib, but
he got waxed.
Yes, but before that, he was the lightweight champion who didn't lose the title. He got stripped of it. Now, I'm not saying that means he should be entitled to an automatic title shot again, but it does say to me that he would be reasonably entitled to a top 3 lightweight contender. Like Tony Ferguson, somebody like that. So the Aldo match does make sense, except for the fact that Aldo is now coming to lightweight and hasn't been part of that lightweight equation up to now.
Well, and then not only that, but one thing is Conor McGregor's been out of the mix in a while. Now he's had that fast life and all the money coming to him, all the exposure and all that. Where does that put him on the mental stage of going in there against Jose
Well, see,
Aldo?
that's why I think he
Jose
perks
Aldo's
up.
he's going to be working hard.
I think he perks up when he sees Jose Aldo because he's thinking, all right, I can beat him mentally.
Sure.
I already got the advantage that I beat him once, so I can mess with them all during the fight, the pre-fight and fight week and all that.
Yeah.
Because Jose just carries all that with him, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then skill set, of course, Conor feels like, hey, I can knock anyone out, not just Jose Aldo. Jose Aldo's got to be thinking, hey, look, he got me in 13 seconds, but I didn't even have a chance to see how my skill set plays out against his skill set. Maybe I kick his legs, maybe I wrestle him, I don't know. So I think both guys would feel comfortable in doing it. At least Jose Aldo's out of the picture as long as Max is the champ. But I will say this, Richard, I just don't – I think Conor's out because – it's Poirier versus Khabib. If it's a classic and they run it back, whatever. But the next guy's got to be Tony Ferguson. I don't see why Tony would have to take a fight against Conor when he's 14-1 as a lightweight. So that's why I asked you. If it's due to popularity, I would agree. If you're saying, hey man, money talks, blah blah blah, popularity, okay. But even then, boy, that's just. I mean, Tony's just perfectly waiting in the wings for September 7th. I got next. It's as simple as that. And the way I look at it.
I agree, except that when you have an opportunity to fight Conor McGregor, I think there is a lot of fighters, and more importantly, a lot of fighters' managers who would sit them down and go, hey, I know you want to be champion. That'd be awesome to be champion. But let me tell you what a main event pay-per-view against Conor McGregor brings you in terms of elevating your stock. I think he's the one possible exception to that. And then the other thing, going back to Aldo for a second, is you do have to consider now, even though he would be moving to a new weight class, talking about a guy who's come off of a loss and who has lost 3 of his last 5, 4 of his last 7. So, it's also maybe there's a little bit of a blemish there where with Aldo, if he's going to be going into new territory in a new weight class, he might want to build that back up a little bit before you put him right in there against Conor. In terms of you're going to compare those records, if that's going to matter in terms of marketability.
No, but just for the matching, it makes so much sense, like you said about Jose Aldo and the position that he's at. Conor McGregor's being out but still wants to get to that top.
Yeah.
Why not match him up against Aldo? Plus, there's the storyline there.
That makes sense.
And why not? And you're right. Economically, it makes so much sense because now Jose Aldo beats Conor McGregor. Not only did he get that exposure there, but now tenfold, he's going to be able to negotiate for higher fees down the road.
And sometimes
one hell of a fight, though. I wouldn't want to miss that one. I'd like to watch that one.
And sometimes, if it's a fighter like Tony Ferguson, or more recently we saw it with Jorge Masvidal, a name who is very familiar to the rank-and-file fight fans, but, I always come back to that casual fan. Either it's the guy who only buys 1 or 2 fights a year or the friend of the guy who doesn't follow the sport as closely or whatever. One of those main events against Conor McGregor can do wonders for elevating your stock, even though you've been a household name to, the more hardcore fight fans for years.
Right. All right, let's see what Marco from Waco thinks. What's up, Marco? How you doing? Marco from Waco.
Vatos, Stitch.
What's up, man?
Pues, ¿qué pasó, mi Marcos?
¿Qué pasa, Vatos?
Been missing you, man.
I know, and hey, a little ¿qué pasa, Vato, to Rich Hunter? What's up, Vato?
Hola.
You've never sounded whiter.
Hey,
How about this one? Olale.
Órale.
Yeah.
hey, that's much better. Look, I wanna take a little fork on the road because we got Steve there. You know, he's famous for cornering famous boxers, and we got this tragedies in boxing a couple of weeks ago with the Russian fighter and the Argentinian fighter dying on the same week.
Yeah.
And now we got BJ Penn, that want to fight again, and they throw this statistic. He had 1,400 blows to the head thrown at him on his career, man, especially on this last 8-fight losing stretch. And that throw him to Nick Lentz, and Nick Lentz is experiencing some, I would say, truths about the BJ Penn that nobody wants to admit, but they sound real to me, on his interview with Helwani, he's saying that, he told PJ, you're not a legend, you're a drug addict, you're beating your wife up, you gotta get your shit straight, or something bad is gonna happen to you. And now we're having this, man. I mean, are we learning our lessons? Because we just had this shit happening in boxing not that long ago, like a week ago, and we're throwing BJ Penn to this. God forbid something really bad happen. I mean, I don't say he's going to die, but some permanent damage happened to BJ Penn. He's not looking good as it is because, he's fighting bouncers for the street clubs on the streets and stuff, I just don't like it. And I want Steve's opinion and your guys' opinions about this whole thing. It's getting pretty ugly. Peace out.
All right, see you.
That's a big conversation, and you're absolutely right.
Start with the boxers. What are your thoughts on the boxers?
That's what I say. Let's start off with these two boxers. That passed away.
I mean, so close together. Wow, that's a really shock.
It's probably never going to happen again, but it did happen. So now it opens up the eyes of a lot of people. But in the gyms, I've been in the gyms. We're talking. Did the damage happen during the training, the long-term training, and at this point when they're boxing, did it just elevate it to the point where you had bleeding in the brain?
Right.
We don't know. I took Livingstone Bramble and Christine Ferreira, a bare knuckle fighter. They're at the Dr. Bernick is doing medical test on their brains and all that. So that has to be studied, and definitely you got to take a look at the fighters. And I brought up a point when I worked with Andre Durrell. At that point, the team that was with us weren't doing their job, and I looked at him at the 8th round. He's taking shots that are penetrating, Chuck Liddell type of shots where he's just penetrating. They do long-term damage. And I asked him in the ring as I'm working on him, I said, look, did you want to continue? And he kind of said no, and I stopped the fight. No, one more round. And I said, no. Once you say no, then you're done. I'm not going to let you go back up. So let's get into BJ Penn. When I worked with BJ Penn, and I worked many of his fights, and was one corner, the other corner, but usually on his corner. But when he fought, I think Frankie Edgar, was that his last UFC fight? Then, and during that era. But he's down on the ground, and I get down on my knees, and I'm cleaning him up, and he puts his forehead on my forehead, and he said, I shouldn't be here.
Damn.
And
that was 7 fights ago.
And once a fighter says that, then, the whole demographics of what you do could be dangerous down the road. So, why he's doing that fight and why they're letting him do that fight, especially after what happened with these two fighters, you got to kind of pull the reins back and let's reevaluate the situation. I love BJ Penn, but, he has to be careful.
Mm-hmm. So. Okay. Well, I will say this. As far as boxing is concerned, that sport really needs to take a step back and look, because I believe it was the Russian fighter. Before he even became pro, he had like 200 and some amateur fights. Think about all the rounds to prepare you for those. Think about all those fights in themselves. Now, I get it. Some of them are just 4-rounders, and they work their way up. But it's still a lot of boxing, a lot of shots to the head.
That's common with a lot of the high-ranking amateurs worldwide. Cubans, 300 fights, 200 fights. That was normal.
Yeah, but that's a lot of repetitive blows to the head.
Of course.
You know what I mean? MMA, it's a clean shot with a 4-ounce glove. Boom, you're out. That's it. Not boom, 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 boom. 12 rounds, hundreds of blows to the head, and then I finally take you out. So I feel like boxing is probably going to have to hit the brakes a little bit on just the amount of sparring, I guess, that they do. I think they need to maybe slow down a little bit on that. You got to make it count by the time you do become a pro. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say on that point, I wonder if boxing could take a look at average length of fights again. They did it once upon a time when they eliminated the 15-rounders, right? And I know it would be sacrilege to a lot of purists, but if you think about a lot of boxing matches that you see, a lot of times the outcome is fairly obvious 5-6 rounds into the fight. I mean, sometimes we see somebody with a big comeback or something like that, but think about all the times we see somebody going toward a decision and you're kind of like, all right, stylistically, I see what's happening here, and this is probably going to be the way the fight plays out. If boxing matches were reduced to maybe even more commonly 10-rounders, something like that, 8-rounders. I mean, I realize that would mess with a lot of legacies in terms of, well, yeah, but he fought in the 12-round era and this guy fought in the 8 or 10-round era. But I think it would eliminate a lot of unnecessary damage because a lot of times by that 8th round, not to mention the 10th round, we kind of know what's going to happen with that boxing match.
Yeah, but, a lot of the deaths, I mean, I'd have to look at the statistics, but I don't think a lot of them are guys have died in the 11th and 12th round, and there used to be 15 at one time,
right?
So
and beyond.
So
that would be an interesting.
I'd like to
study.
keep it at 12.
Yeah, that would be an interesting statistic, though, because I couldn't tell you right off the top of my head.
But just think about what I said: 240 amateur fights.
Yeah.
What if he just did a 180? I just cut that guy's career, the amount that he's trained and all that, by 1/4. But after 180 fights, you should be able to tell, is this guy got it or not before he becomes a pro? Does he really need 240? And the guy that did 180, does he really need that? Could he get by with 120? I don't know. Maybe, that just seems like a lot before you get to the fights where you're finally getting paid. You know what I mean?
I guess my point would be, even if it's not making a difference on the given night, if it would take cumulative rounds off the front end. So less fight rounds would also probably mean less sparring rounds over time. I just wonder if we could keep more mileage on the odometer if just 2 rounds at a time here, 4 sparring rounds at a time here, we found a way to reduce that wear and tear. I don't know.
Well, I know at Extreme Couture, they only go live 1 day a week.
Yeah.
And they used to go live a lot more. You know what I mean? And a lot of gyms are doing that.
Yeah.
And they're just going one time. I think TriStar, it's Saturdays. They want to mimic Saturday, so they work all week to get to Saturday. But I just think eventually that's probably what's going to happen with boxing. I don't think they'll get away from 12 rounds, but I do believe that they could probably just take care of the fighters as they're growing from kids to teenagers to young men, and then eventually to professionals.
And it's also the dry out periods. That they're being questioned, they're being investigated. Losing all that water weight during the week of the fight, especially MMA fighters, they lose a lot more weight than a boxer. Boxer 3, 4, 5 pounds are freaking out.
Right.
MMA guys can lose 10, 15 pounds in that 1 week. So does that become an issue? But there should be some studies that should happen, and unfortunately, they're not doing everything that they need to protect the fighter.
Regarding BJ Penn, I don't think you can compare too much the MMA damage that you can to some of these boxers as far as the head trauma. But why are we doing this? In other words, he's on a 7-fight losing streak. What does the win give him? I mean, does it just give him the money? Well, I think Go said it the other day, if whatever he stands to make, couldn't Dana just go, here's $250,000, do what you need to do to take care of yourself, but I'm not going to sit there and send you back into a fight. And then him fighting Nick Lentz isn't going to sell that many more tickets for that's what I'm saying. Like, what does he need? Is it the training that keeps him out of trouble? What is it that he did to convince Dana White? I think it boiled down to money. I need the money.
First, to your point about the cutting him the check to not fight. Not that Dana doesn't have the resources to do that, but I'll bet that's a lot more difficult to do in the new era of ownership than it was when it was him and the Fertittas.
True.
What I was going to say about BJ, if BJ is on a 7-fight losing streak, and I always come back to this. In 2014, we were talking about that fight just a second ago. I think that's when you were talking about, Frank, the 3rd time that he fought Frankie Edgar. So my girlfriend and I had just started dating. She didn't watch MMA before that or whatever, and that was her first fight to ever attend. And that was not the night to see B.J. Penn.
Right.
And I remember saying to her after the fight, keep in mind she knows nothing from nothing about any of this, I said, that's one of the greatest fighters of all time. And she said, wow, really?
Why?
Yeah. And I said, oh, yeah. Yeah, you didn't see him when you needed to see him. Now, 5 fights past that and 7 fights into a losing streak, B.J. Penn is 2 losses away from being a 500 fighter. I mean, that's pretty heavy when you think about it, given the fact that, once again, unquestionably, you're talking about one of the greatest fighters of all time. And I think when you're a first ballot Hall of Famer, when you are one of the all-time greats, one of the limited downsides of that is that you class yourself in a good way out of a whole lot of other fights. You know, there's never going to be a value. You're never going to be on the first fight of the Fight Pass prelims fighting a guy who's 2-0. You know, a lot of other guys can, but you can't. Why? Because you were so good, you turned out to be one of the best of all time. And I think if you get later into your career and you're trying to find a reason to hang on, sometimes because you're in that exclusive club, it gives you actually a few less opportunities than it would other fighters.
And this might be one of the reasons why I was going to bring this up. I interviewed Diego Corrales years ago, and I said, you know, what gives that fighter, and let's talk about the fighter, what gives him that thing that always want to fight? It's that adrenaline rush. It's being in the public. You know, they've been through our whole lives, and just to cold turkey and get out of that system is something, but they have that fighter's heart and mentality that they could win. Because, you know, they all want to become world champions at one time or the other. B.J. Penn on the horse, he'll never lose his credibility like Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
Right? B.J. Penn is always going to be B.J. Penn, but now you look at a safety factor, and is it worth it what you're going to get paid?
Right.
You know, and if something seriously happens, then, you know, who's going to be the fall guy?
Penn and Guida were the first fight of the prelims in their last fight in Brazil. Not the ones that we used to call fight. Well, actually, they were Fight Pass, but he wasn't even the main event of the ESPN portion. He was actually the first fight. He was buried way down there. True, it was ESPN, but he was featured more by just the legend that he is. Other fighters were like, cool, I get to share a card with BJ Penn. Remember Anderson?
Yep.
Silva. But as far as like it adding anything to the card, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think the card just sold itself as a whole package, not necessarily because of one person.
And
probably Anderson would have more weight, I think.
And he was also fighting Clay Guida. So maybe somebody who didn't have the same career as B.J. Penn, but a distinguished veteran. What I'm saying is there just aren't going to be those many guys. There aren't going to be that many guys to choose from,
right.
You know, for a legend like that.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's happening. They made the fight. So
good question, Marcos.
Yeah. Thank you for that call. We got to go to a break. It's MMA Junkie Radio on Fight Nation Channel 156. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about the light heavyweight division. A few fights are starting to shape up there. I think one's already set. Another one is shaping up, and of course that moves things around for John Jones. That and a little bit of a Twitter beef, between Dan Hooker and Ali Quinto. We'll bring you up to speed there.
The real show begins. Take it away, boys.
NFL Radio's annual training camp tour continues tomorrow at 3 Eastern with a visit with the Cleveland Browns. Jim Miller and Pat Kerwin will speak with quarterback Baker Mayfield, wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr., and more stars from the Browns. Check all of the camp tour stops on NFL Radio, Channel 88, and on the SiriusXM app. That's a cool jam, huh?
It's pretty nice, man. I like that.
Yeah. What's the name of that song, Andre the Giant?
This is actually your request. It Feels Like I'm in Love by Kelly Marie.
Oh, I asked you that for weeks ago, didn't I?
Yeah, so I played it weeks ago, and now I'm just bringing
Are
it
you
back.
playing it again? Yeah, this is a cool
good jam.
This is a cool
The
song.
days of Shaft, man.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so I was talking about the light heavyweight division. You know, John Jones just defended his title 3 times in like 7 months. Alexander Gustafsson, Anthony Smith, and most recently Thiago Santos, and he wants to stay busy. So Corey Anderson's kind of throwing his name into the hat. He's won 3 in a row. He actually rushed John Jones at a signing in New Jersey. They had a little bit of a incident, but you know, nothing physical. Also, you got Jan Blachowicz, who got a win over Luke Rockhold. He's saying, hey, look, I've just paid my dues over time. I'd like to fight. And then Dominic Reyes is 10-0. You know, and his last win was Volkan Ozdemir, who's a ranked fighter. So he's like, hey, wait a minute. I'm hitting a lot of check marks here with what I've done. I'd like to fight. Well, Dana White's not really committing to anything, and neither is John Jones. And I'm of the belief that they're going to wait to see what happens with Cormier and Miocic. Because if Cormier wins, I think Dana White really wants Jones versus Cormier. And, of course, Cormier wants it at 205. Jones doesn't really want to go up. And I totally disagree with that. I would make –
You mean Cormier wants it
at 205?
Yeah.
I would – if I was Cormier, I'd say, no. I mean, you got me twice. Why are we doing this again? Come to heavyweight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because Cormier is the champion at heavyweight. And if he beats Miocic, he stays champ. He gets the pay-per-view buys.
Yeah.
If he goes down to 205, he's the challenger. Now, I'm sure that's all negotiable. But for sure, you get the most money when you defend your title as the champion.
Plus,
that's why I want Ferguson to fight for the title, then fight McGregor. So when he fights McGregor, he gets those pay-per-view buys.
Plus, I think Cormier would have a better shot against Jones at heavyweight.
You think so?
Do you think it's just the
but
thing
he's
about
so
the
competitive. And so let's just say he beats Jones. Then what? Jones can still say, well, I'm up 2-1.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to just concede that one. You know what I mean? And if you get him at heavyweight, you can go, I got you at heavyweight. You got me at light heavyweight. Yeah, I gave you your first loss, and that's that.
Yeah.
But
John Jones could just his body structure could make the 205.
Yeah, he walks around at 225, 230.
Yeah,
he just
and
doesn't
be
need to lose any weight.
Right, exactly. So.
Right, but anyway, so I think that's why this is what's playing out. It looks like Chris Weidman's now fighting Dominic Reyes. They're going to headline, or I don't know about headline, but they headline the Boston card actually, and then looks like Corey Anderson may now be fighting Johnny Walker.
I saw that.
Yeah. So Johnny Walker says, let's do the dance. They want to do that one at New York. So maybe that's Anderson already conceding the fact that he's just not going to get the title shot. Dana White was asked about it. He said, he's turned down a bunch of fights. Anderson says, you got me. I have turned down a bunch of fights, but it's always against the same guy. He goes, it's not like I'm turning down 50 different opponents. I just keep turning the same opponent down 49 times and then one other guy. Because he says he really wants the John Jones fight, and he's politicking, campaigning just like anybody else would. So that's kind of how that sits. I think, folks, if you're wondering when John Jones will fight again, wait to see what happens with DC and Stipe Miocic, and then after that, you know, whatever happens, happens. But in the meantime, these other fight cards are filling up. Now, at the lightweight division, we got Dan Hooker, who got a really, really impressive win a few weekends ago, and he was saying that he'd like to fight on the card in Australia, headlined by Robert Whittaker and Israel Adesanya. He wants Al Iaquinta. Al Iaquinta had sent an immediate text that said, I love it down under. And so what happened was Hooker said, who wants it? Iaquinta says, I love it down under. Then Dan Hooker proceeds to say, the UFC told me you turned down the fight. Quit acting like you want to fight me. You don't. And Iaquinta says, I'd rather fight in Australia, which I guess I don't know if it makes sense or not. Al Iaquinta says, those are lies. Hooker says, put up or shut up. So they've kind of been going at it on Twitter. I mean, I don't know Hooker that well. I know Iaquinta pretty well, and he doesn't seem to be scared of anyone.
Mm-hmm. This would be a great fight for Dan Hooker right now because he's got a lot of momentum coming off a big win over James Vick. And in Iaquinta, you've got a former title challenger. You've also got somebody who's a talker, somebody who can help hype up a fight, whereas, Hooker doesn't really have that moniker on himself, at least to this point. So when you talk about taking advantage of the momentum that you built off your last fight, I think this is a great opportunity for Dan Hooker if he can get it.
Hooker's saying if he doesn't want it, he'd love to fight Alexander Hernandez, who just got a controversial win over Francisco Trinaldo. They were on the same card over there in San Antonio. Hooker's the one that beat James Vick. So, those are two very, very interesting divisions, and I would like to see Iaquinta fight Dan Hooker and maybe fight on that card and just kind of work his way back up. Remember, he fought Khabib. I just don't see him going 5 rounds with Khabib, but then being scared of Hooker. Maybe he just isn't ready or doesn't want to fight in Australia, but he's been pretty clear about it. Now, that said, Iaquinta will be on tomorrow's show, so we'll clear some stuff up with him.
That's easy.
Yeah.
God, and the characters has changed so much since I've been out of the UFC. So many new names that I don't, it's tough for me to comment on because I don't know.
Right. But what do you think of Twitter beefs?
Like these here?
Yeah,
when
chirping at each other in public.
I was going to bring that up. Also, I saw you reading those comments and all that. It's getting to be a little bit more like the WWE over excessive type of promoting yourself or promoting that type of fight.
Yeah.
Does it work? The new generation might prove it.
It seems to work. Yeah. It just reminds me of when you're back in grade school or high school, and then somebody goes, "Hey, Stitch and Richard are going to fight after school," and everybody goes, "Ooh," you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And what does everybody do? They go out behind the 7-Eleven or the Jack in the Box or whatever, and a fight goes down. And then the next day everyone talks about it at school or at the park or wherever.
That's a good analogy.
Well, and that's why I want people to understand that on this show we get a lot of people that say, let's bring the martial arts aspect. It's not that I'm against that.
No.
But what I'm saying is the UFC's running an entertainment business. And even though many of these fighters come from martial arts, they could give two shits.
No.
They want to sell you a fight. And I'm going to use the same example. If I say, hey, Stitch, Richard and Goes are going to fight behind Jack in the Box at 3. Let's go check it out. You'd probably go, let's go,
let's
right?
Go, I'm in.
Let's go check it out.
Of course.
If I said, hey, Richard and Goes invited us to their karate tournament on Saturday. You want to go? You go, fuck no. Like, why am I going to go to that? I mean, you just...
Two different levels of energy.
Exactly. That's exactly it. You know what I mean? And so that's the best explanation I can give for why that doesn't appeal to many. It appeals to some, and I'm not calling you weirdos or I'm not chastising you. I'm just saying the majority. That's why when you go to a stadium, an arena, you got those guys that say, knock his block off, fight, pussy, kick his ass, Seabass, put him in a body bag, all the dumb stuff that you kind of heard as a kid. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's the majority of the arena, and that's who the UFC has to appeal to. That's why these Twitter beefs actually kind of work. That's why two guys at a weigh-in and the shove works in boxing.
I think it's fine as long as they're good at it. I think the problem comes in when somebody tries to do something that's not their forte. Like, this type of thing is perfectly suited for Conor McGregor. But I'll give you an example. If somebody were to go to a fighter and say, listen, fans don't want to see wrestling anymore. All they're interested in for some reason now is karate. Well, if that's Lyoto Machida, great. Do what you've been doing. But if that's Ben Askren, that's poor advice to follow. It's kind of like you got to know where your strong suit is and not be tempted to try to manufacture something you can't. Like, remember when Ben Rothwell did his evil laugh that fell flat? Like, don't get roped into doing something just because that's the trend if that's not your forte.
Yeah. All right, we got to take another break. It's MMA Junkie Radio on Fight Nation Channel 156. When we come back, we're going to have one of the headliners from, CFFC 77. It's Joey Piriotti versus Jeremiah Wells. They're going to be fighting on August 16th at the Hard Rock Live in Atlantic City. It's going to be on the UFC Fight Pass. We'll talk about that when we come back.
Boys,
Our next guest is Joey Piriotti. He'll be fighting on August 16th at CFFC 77 on the UFC Fight Pass. He joins us now on the hotline. What's up, Joey? How you doing?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Not much. Welcome to MMA Junkie Radio. I'm here with Stitch Duran, also Richard Hunter from the Phone Booth Fighting Podcast. I'm George, the host. Joey, you're the mama's boy, huh? You one of those guys that goes home and with the laundry, and the mom actually does the laundry, and while she's prepared this big old meal, by the time you're done, it's all folded, and you go back with your clean laundry?
And honestly, it was you basically nailed it for the first few years of adulthood, really. Luckily, I found my wife, Sarah. It's been a pretty smooth transition from mom doing laundry and food to now wife does laundry and food. So
nice.
So far, it's been a pretty smooth transition for me.
Good job.
So you took that nickname from Waterboy, huh? I love my mama.
Pretty much.
Good for you, man.
Pretty much. I get just as spicy, I guess. Yeah.
I love it.
Very cool. All right, and so you also work as a firefighter? Are you part-time, full-time, or volunteer? How does that work?
I started out volunteer about 2011. I volunteered for about 4 years in my hometown of Enumclaw, and now it took me like 4 or 5 years actually to get hired, just because it's such a high-demand job, And I got picked up in 2014 by the Port of Seattle Fire Department, and have been there ever since, and just been having a blast. We're actually career full-time there, so I got a little seniority underneath me now, and some new guys that I can whip into shape and stuff. So it's been great.
Well, there's a lot. This is the one career that can work with MMA fighters. I can name off about three or four right off the top of my head, including Miocic, Chris Lytle, Eddie Wineland is a full-time fighter.
Just
Eric,
the conditioning factor.
Eric Del Fiero, the coach for Alliance, he's also a full-time firefighter. So that's why I won't even ask you, how do you get it done? Because I've heard it. Usually the team, usually your the fire station guys, they cooperate and help pick up shifts and allow you to focus, especially when it's camp time and fight time, right?
Oh, yeah. It's insane how much support we get from all of my brothers and sisters back at the firehouse. Like I'm sure they've told you guys before, it's probably one of the easiest transitions because of the 24-hour shift. So it's kind of, you get like the full day of training and stuff, but it can be kind of a little tougher, I guess, if we get like a late night or something like that, or some late night fires or whatever. You're up till 3 or 4 in the morning, and then you're running on fumes the next day. So besides like the sleep deprivation, I'd say that's probably the worst thing about it. But I mean, like you said too, you get a tremendous amount of support from brothers and sisters picking up shifts. And when I was fighting more local, we actually had a lot more guys where the whole shift would usually try and make it out to wherever we were playing, like Emerald Queen Casino back in Tacoma, which is about 40 minutes from home. And I've been trying to get a couple of the guys out to Jersey, but it seems like a little bit of a stretch to leave the wives and kids at home. So,
okay.
I wonder if a fighter, like an opponent of a firefighter, has ever thought to maybe during fight week, create a little late night brush fire. Nothing serious, but something that's going to keep them out late.
Hey, I wouldn't be surprised. If I was on the other end, I'd probably do the same thing.
But let's look at me as a cut man. This is Stitch here. How you doing, my man? So. When I wrap hands, I could tell a carpenter's hands because they're so fucking strong.
Right.
But a firefighter like yourself must have some pretty strong wrists and pretty strong hands, right? Just by the type of work you do.
It's a lot of labor and stuff like that. Not as conventional as we're not usually building anything like a carpenter. We're usually breaking stuff down and breaking it apart, but
using your hands,
using the same kind of muscles and using the hand strength and all that stuff. So. Similar but different at the same time.
I've always wondered, Joey, if you go to a happy hour and your friends are running late, and you go, "Hey, why are you running late?" and they go, "Oh, I was at the office, so I had to put out a couple little fires." Does that bug you, knowing that, dude? A fire is way more than just whatever you were just doing.
Based off of my friends, I wouldn't be surprised if that was something that would come up regularly just to piss me off and bug the shit out of me. But they know my sense of humor, so they're just trying to get under my skin. And so they read me pretty well. So that's not something far fetched by any means.
Well, 12-1 is an excellent record to start things off. You got Jeremiah Wells.
Thank you.
And you guys are headlining CFFC 77. But I gotta believe as much as you're focused on Jeremiah Wells, and you should be, maybe 1%, 5%, 10%, you tell me, is thinking ahead of what could be the next step, correct? What are you dreaming? What are your dreams in this sport after CFFC?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's a very small percentage is focusing on whatever comes afterwards. Like I've like all of my opponents, amateur, professional, before that, it's always been focused on whatever the task is at hand, and after that, I will focus on whatever comes after. But like I've been saying for a while, I want to get into the UFC and make my name there and see what I can do up at the highest level competition. I think my record kind of shows for 12-1. I think it's 11 finishes or something like that now. So, not sure exactly what else I need to do, but I thought a record would be good enough. But I guess we got to just be a little more exciting this time around.
Mm-hmm.
But, UFC is 100% end goal, like you guys are saying. But we can't look past the task at hand by any means.
Yeah, we were talking today or earlier about the marketing aspect of fighters, that are in the UFC and other sports, or not sports, but other different organizations. But that's social media is so important to these young guys nowadays to get recognized.
God. Yeah, totally. It totally is. And I'm not the best at social media by any means. I'd say I'm kind of an old, almost like an old timer when it comes to it. I'm trying to get good at it, but I just feel so awkward putting myself out there and doing all that extra stuff. So it's still a learning curve as it is. I just have my coach, Jeff Hoagland, always just like, he's like, I know this is uncomfortable and lame, but you need to get your ass out there and go take a picture and put it on social media.
There you go.
So
now, does Coach Jeff do all the tape study, or do you get involved? Tell me what the little scouting report is on Jeremiah Wells. What does he bring to the table?
It's a lot. It's both, honestly. Jeff kind of scouts everything out beforehand, and kind of like to pick the opponents. So he's doing to make sure our styles match up right and all this other stuff. And then as it gets closer and closer, we're both kind of picking it apart on our own time, and then coming back to the gym and kind of putting our 2 cents in the hat, and then kind of basing our drills and training for the day off of that. So it's definitely a team effort, and it makes it a lot more. I feel like it's a lot more hands-on when you're doing it that way. When you guys are both involved, and it makes it more of a team experience. And you're both involved, looking at the same type of things, but looking at them from different lenses and kind of picking different things apart.
Joey Periotti is our guest here on MMA Junkie Radio. 12-1 overall, fighting Jeremiah Wells, 7-2-1 on August 16th. At CFFC 77. Hard Rock Live at Etnis Arena in Atlantic City, New Jersey. I've never been to Atlantic City.
Really? Oh, I've been there many times.
Yeah, I'm sure you have. Yeah. Boxing and MMA, right?
Of course. Yeah, you got to take walk the boardwalk and look for those pastrami sandwiches.
Yeah. So this is a big fight on UFC Fight Pass, main event, Atlantic City. Huge fight for you, Joey. Have you already envisioned how this is going to end? If so, share with us. Is this a knockout, a submission? What round? What do you see happening here to get your hand raised?
Honestly, I'm not 100% sure on what the finish. I'm predicting a finish. We've been working on a lot of stuff at the gym to make it a little more. Our goal is to try and make the common fan want to look like the uncommon fan. Sorry, somebody who's just kind of getting into MMA and not really knowing what it's all about. We were trying to attract those guys, but at the same time, we want them to not be able to watch the screen while it's happening. So hopefully, it's going to be a lot of ferocity and tenacity and all that kind of good stuff. Hopefully within the first 3 rounds is what I'm looking for. Some sort of finish, KO, submission. We're not sure. We'll see what happens, but whatever presents itself.
Well, you said you had 11 finishes, right? Submissions?
Yeah, we got. I think it's just about probably 60-40 submission to TKOs and KOs and all that stuff.
Good for you.
60-40-ish, somewhere in there.
Will you be rocking anything like hat or T-shirt that represents your fire station number or anything like that?
Or his mama?
I usually rock. I usually rock. No, if my mom could make a shirt or a hat that would say that whatever, she would have already done it by now. So, thank you, Mom, for not doing that yet. No, I usually rock a fire hat throughout whenever.
I like it.
That's good.
Stuff like that. So,
all right.
Yeah.
All right, we got 60 seconds. Go ahead, Richard. You got another one?
Just one quick question. I want to ask you about January 5th of this year, where you had 2 fights canceled in one day. Was that like the worst day ever? I mean, did you have what was that like?
Honestly, it's not the first time it's happened. So it was just kind of really, really shitty because I had so many people figuring it out. I haven't been back to the Tacoma Dome since I won state in high school, so that's probably about 10 years ago. And we just had the whole town of Enumclaw ripping and roaring and ready to rock. And to try and to like hear that news and then have to go back and like tell everybody that they need to get like their tickets refunded and stuff. It's just kind of shitty how it all went down. But
no kidding.
Sounds like you got hosed.
Game and you can't really control it. Yeah, no, it totally sucks. But you know,
all right.
Possible, I guess.
Hey, it was great to get to know you, man. We're out of time, but thanks, Joey, and good luck on August 16th. All right, brother.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
All right, we'll see
you.
All
the best, my man.
All right, on Twitter, @JR_6. Folks, we'll be right back. It's MMA Junkie Radio on Fight Nation, channel 156.
The real show begins. Take it away, boys.
How about that? Back-to-back Hall & Oates. Andre the Giant. Good stuff with the music. Stitch, I'm sure you remember Hall & Oates, right?
Of course,
Back in the day?
Sure.
Yeah. Well, Richard Hunter, too.
I'm familiar with Hall & Oates. Hall & Oates is one of the ultimate other guy bands where there's a guy and then there's another guy just kind of in the background.
George Michael and Andrew
stuff.
Ridgely from Wham?
That's the ultimate one. Andrew Ridgely, if you can come up with that.
Can you name one more?
I think we talked about Tears for Fears, but that was kind of a co-equal.
They equaled out it for a while.
I mean, maybe the ultimate
Kurt
one.
Smith and Roland Orzabal.
Simon and Garfunkel.
That's the ultimate one. That's probably the one to go to. Yeah.
When they decided, when they were friends, 50-50.
Yeah.
But then one guy blows up. He's like, fuck, I'm carrying this guy. You know what I mean?
Hey.
Yeah. All right. All right, folks. Hopefully, I'm still just trying to get a final confirmation here on Ed Ruth. It was kind of a little bit last moment, but we can continue here with the latest news. Well, actually, before I get to the latest news in mixed martial arts, catch us up, Stitch. What is next for you? Where are you headed, like, in the next, we'll say, what's your August look like? Because July's winding down.
Next week, I'm going to Biloxi, Mississippi for
Bare Knuckle?
The Bare Knuckle fights.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. The week after, actually, I'm going to Mesquite for the Tough Enough. Eli Pruzin right there that kind of handles all the operations for the casino is setting my wife and I up with a nice room and dinner and all that stuff. And then, but shoot, I'm going to, where am I at? Then I'm going to Edinburgh, Texas for boxing on the 24th. I've got FFC here. Jesse Vargas tentatively fighting September the 14th. Then I go to Paris September 28th with Tony Yoka.
France or
yeah,
California?
Tony Yoka, no.
Oh, okay.
Paris, France. Tony Yoka won a gold medal for France.
Nice.
I'll be working with them, and then so on and so on.
Now, I have a question regarding Bare Knuckle.
Yeah.
Malianaji and Lobov.
Yes.
I love Paulie Malianaji, two-time boxing champ, great commentator for Showtime.
Yeah.
I just didn't like the way he dealt with the loss a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, I understand if he thought he won, okay. But he seemed outraged that Lobov won. Yeah. And if you watch the fight, there was no outrage that Lobov could win. Even if you disagreed with it, it wasn't an outrage. Now, I also realize he broke his hand, but how was he behind the scenes? Is that just maybe a a front that he kind of had to put on a little bit, or what can we say? You know,
you talking about after the fight?
Yeah. I'm sure that was a tough pill to swallow. You know, but
it was. You know, but the thing about it, when Dave Feldman, the promoter, got all the fighters together for the rules meeting, you know, he mentioned, and he mentions it all the time. This isn't boxing. This is bare knuckle fights.
Right.
You know, you have 2 minutes, 5 rounds to do what you do. If you guys toe the line, you stay within that circle, you guys get a bonus. So that's really, it's just going out there and throwing chingazos. Paulie Malignaggi came in with the mentality of boxing him out and winning decisions.
I
But
saw his
that's not
footwork. I saw how he was setting
Yeah.
traps. There was a lot of things he brought over from boxing. But at some point, you have to throw something.
You got to throw
even
blows.
with the hand that wasn't broken.
Yeah.
Although I can't remember if he said in the end both were, but I know one of them clearly wasn't one. Even if it was just jab, jab, jab,
Right.
you know, and but then he just disparaged MMA a little bit, talking about MMA fighters quit and tap, and I'm like, but Paulie, that doesn't happen, and
Yeah.
I wish it wouldn't have been like that, because when we met him, he seemed really, really respectful. He understood that's MMA, respect. This is boxing, respect. But I feel like that was 15 years ago when boxing and MMA was like, you know, shitting on each other, and the sports, both sports have grown, and not only that, bare knuckles growing. You know what I mean?
Growing big time. Yeah, you know, and I was with Artem after the fight. I mean, I worked this corner, but I'm cleaning him up right as soon as the bell rang, and him and Paulie get together, and of course, you know, they apologize to each other.
I thought that was cool.
Yeah, for you know, the things that happened leading up to that. So I thought that was real cool. But first time I met Artem, and tremendous guy, man. You know, I had no qualms with him. I know Paulie. I have no qualms with him.
I like how Stitch said that bare knuckle is his favorite gig now because of all the work
the
it creates for him.
It's guaranteed.
Stitch, you're probably hoping they bring back dueling, right? You just treat gunshot wounds.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, from the head down, right, or from the chin down,
Yeah.
right.
Knife fighting, yeah.
No, the probability of cuts is pretty high.
And
you
what
know?
was that fight like, by the way? Because I loved the build-up. I loved fight day, and as they got closer and closer, you know, Sean Wheelock and Antonio Tarver and Chris Lytle, you know, they just did a great job of building to the main event. But what was the Florida Fairgrounds like in Tampa? Was it pretty loud, good energy on that?
Yeah, it was screaming fans. You know, no doubt about it. And you know, the thing about it, I think this is our 7th show we did. Fans would always come later on. You know how they are. People were already loaded up in the audience for the first fight of the night.
Yes.
So it was really a pretty historical night for that. And when these guys came out, the fans went crazy.
So if Artem Lobov and Jason Knight was kind of like a Forrest and Bonner,
Oh, yes.
would you say this one was kind of like Shamrock and Tito or something? You know, 'cause as MMA progressed, you know how there was just key fights for the UFC that really, really helped them grow.
Maybe more of the Shogun Forrest Griffith fight.
Okay.
First UFC fighter versus a Pride fighter.
Okay.
You know, Forrest won that fight, and of course the UFC kept expanding.
It's a great
Might be-
example.
Might be a good analogy right there.
Yeah. All right. Well, I hope to have Paulie back on the show just to see if maybe just it was emotions talking or what.
Sure.
He also does one of our shows here on the network, At the Fights. It's a boxing show with Randy Gordon and Jerry Cooney, and I was listening and I was like, wow, I was disagreeing with a lot of his points, but I just think that maybe if they were to fight again, maybe they'd have a different result, and maybe he would fight differently. You know what I mean? Because he did show off some early skills where I thought, ooh, Paulie's going to win this pretty easily. Artem had a tough time catching up to him and figuring out, but Artem's got so much heart, so much resolve, and he just kept going at him, and then eventually, you know, he just threw more. There was more for the judges to score.
And then the dirty boxing.
Mhm.
You know, that was an advantage to Artem also. And but you know, I got to give Paulie credit for just crossing that line to do what he did. Whether he's designed for bare knuckle fights is a different thing. I don't think so. Not so much because you know they're all going to get cut, but because of his hands. You know, and injuries for hands with this type of guy are pretty high.
He's also, I think, if this thing continues to grow, he will be remembered as the first real world-class boxing champion that legitimized it. You know, and probably on that level,
going over to bare knuckle was huge for bare knuckle.
Exactly,
Sure.
and on that level, we probably still haven't seen the equivalent from the MMA world. You know, I mean, Artem was an established MMA fighter, but wait until we see the former UFC champion of some particular weight class going over.
You know, you're talking about Chris Lytle. He does commentating also for bare knuckle fights, but he's also a fighter, and he's designed for that sport.
Yeah.
His style of fighting, you know, is perfect for what they do in that type of fight.
Right.
You know,
I agree.
so yeah.
Hopefully he's not done, right? He's not.
I don't think so.
I mean, I saw him commentating, but I think he was just.
Yeah, I don't think so.
That's
I mean,
all it was.
Chop Corley, a fighter from D.C. that I worked with before, was a world champion. He just asked me 3 days ago at the Mayweather gym that he wants to fight bare knuckle fights. Yeah.
All right. You pass that on to David Feldman?
He trains over at the Mayweather gym.
Yeah.
That's somebody who gave Floyd Mayweather Jr. a harder time than people remember.
Chop.
Yeah.
All right. Jim Ehlers, by the way, is stepping in against Leonard Garcia in the main event.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Remember Leonard's fights in the WEC?
Mm-hmm.
He's tailor-made
and
for bare knuckle.
I was going to say, because he fought in Cancun, Mexico, and he's tailor-made for that also.
Yeah. I mean, he was born for that one.
He was born. Yeah.
For sure.
Exactly. I mean, nothing has to change in this style.
Ehlers stepping in for a night is a good fight. I just recently looked at the website, Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship.tv. I'll look it up in just a second, but I was scanning to see were they able to replace the main event, and boom, the whole card was there. Like they had 8 announced fights and everything. So cannot wait for that one because they've got me hooked up, man. I really enjoy watching.
And it's funny, George and Richard, because when the UFC started, all the boxing guys had no questions for me on the fights, right? Well, once it started picking up, then the Jim Lampleys and all these guys started asking me questions about the UFC and what have you not. Well, the same steps are being taken with bare knuckle fights.
Oh, really?
People are stopping me and asking me about it, and it's drawing interest. From what I understand on the last fight with Paulie fight, that bare knuckles outsold the UFC on pay-per-views. Is that correct?
200,000 pay-per-views is what I think David Feldman. He's the president of the company. He put that out. Yeah. So that was big. I mean, that was their 6th show. The 7th one's coming in. So think about UFC 1, I think sold 85. UFC 2, I think went up to 115 or something. And then of course they had those dark ages, but I don't think by UFC 6 they sold 200,000. I mean, I don't remember, but still, that's a huge number.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a good time for him to have signed the Bagel Boss.
Yeah, really. Michael Chiesa says, I'm definitely looking to fight in December. I want to give myself a little break. I put in some work into these camps, so December fits my timeline real well. He says, however, we're going to do a new deal. I'm excited about it. The one thing he's adamant about is he wants a ranked opponent. Michael Chiesa is really good about speaking his mind and telling people what he would like for his career. I applaud him for doing this, and I applaud him for insisting on going to the next level. He had a good career as a lightweight. Recently he moved up as a welterweight, and he's already got 2 wins. One's over Diego Sanchez, the other one's over Carlos Condit. But he feels like he's carrying a little bit over from his lightweight resume to welterweight, and he would like to fight a ranked opponent. So he's doing things a little bit differently than I guess Cyborg and Dana are just beefing. He's, I think, just taking more of a little bit of a strategic route. Now, as much as I want to give him kudos, and I love me some Max Holloway, here's one thing I didn't understand, and I wanted to see if you guys are on board or if I'm reading into this wrong. Max Holloway posted a picture of him and Frankie Edgar shaking hands. And then he says, the GOAT talk always makes me cringe. Legends can coexist. Frankie was going to win no matter what last night because I am part Frankie. I am who I am as a father and martial artist because of some of the things I've learned from Frankie and Coach Mark Henry. Proud to be Hawaiian, proud to be honorary captain. But if you know the sport the way us fighters know it, every champ reps a little bit of Jersey, whether they like it or not, because of these 2 legends. It's more about the first part. I don't like it when fighters don't like us discussing GOAT or pound for pound or anything like that. And again, I still feel like it's part of probably the respect angle, the martial arts angle. But when we do it, if they only knew the benefit they get by us putting their name out there, you know what I mean? And even if these are discussions, there's no right or wrong answer when it comes to pound for pound or GOAT. It's my opinion, and you can have your opinion, and you can have your opinion. You know what I mean? But there's never really going to be a right or wrong. But the discussion itself, I wish fighters wouldn't feel like they have to cringe at the thought of being thrown out there or being asked the question, because we don't just ask it of anyone. In other words, that night I didn't go, hey, is Jeff Neal a GOAT? Is he one? He hasn't worked his way there yet, but Max Holloway has. So I think it's an appropriate thing. And then another thing I don't like is fighters buying into what the UFC likes, and that's for fight contract discussions to remain private. Why is it that every other sport puts it out there? That's what's helped to get those salaries as high as they are in the NFL, in basketball, in baseball. Sure, they're going to get people tugging on their shirts. Can I get a loan? You want to help me start a business? That's going to happen regardless, whether it's kept secret or not. But if they only knew that by putting it and making it public and seeing what everybody else is seeing, that's how you drive the market to the point where it's fair. Now, eventually, there is going to be a business. In this case, they're not a team, but there's going to be a business that says, sorry, we can't sign you. And if you elect to go with PFL or Bellator or wherever else, then good luck. But we just can't give you this. And then the fighter either has to make a decision and relent or accept or whatever. But putting it out public is not a bad thing.
I agree. To your points, first of all, in terms of the GOAT talk, I think a lot of them don't genuinely feel that way, but it's a self-deprecating way to present it. Because let me give you an analogy. You can talk about how hot a girl is, say she's a supermodel. To me, it's a total turnoff once she acknowledges how hot she is. She knows she's hot. She's a supermodel. But she goes, oh, I don't really get made up, and I'll just kind of bum around at the grocery store or whatever. That's just her being not wanting to come across as egotistical.
But no one buys that it makes her cringe every time she's told she's pretty.
Oh, I agree.
Like if you go, wow, that's a beautiful outfit. You look stunning tonight. Oh, that makes me cringe.
I know. I know. I agree. So, and if he really did feel that way, then I would take issue with it. But I wonder if sometimes it's just a way to kind of defer to, the other people that you're fighting. But to your second point about sharing contractual terms, I completely agree with that. Because when you look at the way that contracts are negotiated in other sports, a lot of times what the agent does is he'll say, now a lot of times this is more the rank and file as opposed to maybe like a superstar franchise player or something. But a lot of times they'll look at, say, take football, for example. Say, you're both wide receivers and Stitch is coming up, this agent represents both of you guys, and Stitch is his contract year, and he just pulls up, he goes, all right, well, all the players that play his position that have these relevant comparable stats, here's what they get paid, here's what you should pay him. And it's almost just like a mathematical formula that they can't really argue very much.
It can also help the owners.
Yes.
Yeah, because you can't also come in here and go, I want this much, because the owner can fire back and go, well, the statistics
here's what we pay the...
Exactly. But what it'll do is it probably will take more money out of the UFC's pocket.
Yeah.
But they're always the ones trumpeting the fact that they want it to be like the other sports, and they want it to be 50-50. You know what I'm right now? The arguments right now are that the fighters only get 15%, 18%. I always hear these numbers a little bit like in between the 10 and 20 range, but nowhere near the 50% that the NBA gets, that the Major League Baseball players get, and NFL fighters.
And players. Added to your comments now, the Cyborg scenario with blasting Dana and Joe Rogan, being that's their last fight, right? Do you think that's a negotiating thing with Dana White, Scott Coker, PFL maybe one that's coming into?
Well, I know PFL's a player because of the $1 million tournament. Scott Coker, the rumors are that he pays well as well.
So do you think Cyborg is doing that to go and maybe negotiate? Mike,
probably. I'm sure
Chiesa maybe just wants to stay with the UFC.
Right.
Like Joey says, his goal is to make it to the UFC.
Right.
So does he have as much leverage as Cyborg?
Right. I would say that Cyborg's biggest fight is not the next one. It's if she beats Amanda Nunes. Because it would be a trilogy, and she'd be the champion. She gets the pay-per-views. And, of course, the trilogy would be a bigger fight. This next fight, whatever she gets, she's going to have to agree to whatever the UFC pays. I'm sure she wants more than she just got paid. And she's also looking for the security of 4 fights or something like that. But she is in an area where Bellator can match, because Bellator can pay those numbers that probably what the UFC wants to pay you when you're not a champion.
Right.
Hopefully I didn't confuse people there. And I think PFL is also a player, except that Chris has to earn it to get to that point. You don't just get awarded the championship fight for $1 million. Now, this year they had the ladies fought 2 times, and then the playoffs, and then they're going to have to fight one last time to become a millionaire. But they get paid along the way, so she'd only have to drop to 155 pounds versus 145. And, of course, there's a potential superstar waiting for her there in Kayla Harrison. But I don't want to respect the rest of the field, especially Sarah Kaufman, who's a former bantamweight champion, and former Invicta champion, former UFC title contender. So I'm sure she would, she might have a say in all this.
To Stitch's point about Cyborg using this as leverage the feud with Dana White, I'll say this: I think it's a unique and possibly very effective approach in this sense. Is she really were her feelings hurt by some of the things that have been said by Dana and by Joe Rogan in the past? I'm sure that is legitimate. But also, it's an interesting time to bring that up because to say things about I feel bullied, I feel like I work in a hostile work environment. Now, we don't typically associate that with professional fighters, but she is in a unique position because of the particular kind of criticism that was levied at her. Keep in mind that if the UFC is considering going public, these are not the kind of headlines that a publicly traded company would want to have swirling around.
About that.
So I think it is possibly, that may be a narrative they want to silence more than anything else for a lot of other reasons than those inside the cage. Just, hey, you can start bringing that stuff up. Let's work out something. And
I asked this the other day, and I apologize for not following up on it, but I did not know she was a mother. Now, is this something?
I don't think I knew that.
Yeah,
Cyborg?
Yeah, 'cause she said my daughter's getting bullied.
Oh, you know what she did? I think she adopted. Yeah, I believe she adopted. I may be wrong, but I believe it was like a family member's kid that she adopted.
I see. Okay.
Yeah,
well,
I do
hats
remember
off,
that.
man. Congratulations.
Yep, I do remember that.
That's awesome, except it sucks that the daughter's getting bullied.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What can you do, man? I know most kids have to go through that, but when I was growing up, kids got bullied. I think you went home and cried maybe. But now it gets so bad kids take their lives. That's a whole other animal. What kids are dealing with now with social media and all that shit. I mean, if I'm teasing you, the class might laugh. Now that's back in the day. If I'm teasing you now, the world gets to see it because everyone's got their phones out. Must suck to be a kid now.
Oh, you were teasing me in my days. I'd throw rocks at you. Right?
Exactly.
We handle it that way.
I mean, yeah.
I'd get teased because my dad never came home, and then I'd go home and try to cry to him, but he wasn't there.
That made it hard.
I don't know if we're supposed to laugh or. Yeah, that was a little awkward there. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, we're going on break now.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's okay. George never knows whenever I go.
I've heard you talk about your mom. I haven't heard you talk about your dad, but I didn't know if I'm supposed to go.
No,
really?
it's okay.
Or?
It's all within the realm of pro comedy. You know. Yeah. If I go to dark family matters, it's fine. It's all good.
All right. Yeah, let's take a break. It's MMA Junkie Radio on Fight Nation, channel 156. Stay close. We'll be right back.
Away, boys.
Well, you mentioned George Michael earlier.
Yeah, there's some Andrew Ridgely in the background.
Yeah.
Just do your part, Andrew. Jitterbug.
And got paid 50%.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Pretty much. Well, no, then George Michael, I think, went off and did. It always happens. The singer goes off and does the solo deal, the solo album. And how does the other? You've been in music, right? Mm-hmm. How does the rest of the band? Do they just expect it, or are they like, this guy's a traitor?
I think they would.
U2 stuck together. Rolling Stones stuck together. So
that is a rare example of U2 is a rare example of where the same four guys have been together that long without any personnel changes. The Stones are almost that way, but they've had a couple of different rhythm guitar players over time. I'll tell you the best example of all of them is ZZ Top. Same three guys since the beginning for like 50 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, they are ZZ Top.
Yeah.
Oh my God. What would you be one guy without a beard?
Yeah.
Just not
his name's Beard too, right?
That's right. The one guy who doesn't have the beard has a mustache. His name is Beard. The key is to own the publishing. That's where the money is in music. So if you're sharing in the publishing, you're good. But if
what does that mean?
Who writes the songs? So like if it's a situation, if everybody's sharing in it.
So if I'm the singer, he's the drummer, Stitch is the drummer.
Yeah.
You're the rhythm guitarist, but you write the music. Mm-hmm. You're actually making the most of the three of us?
Depends on how we agree on it. If I get all the publishing, yes. But if we say, hey, we're going to share it all, then we're all getting rich at the same time. But, yeah, that does suck when it's like 2 out of the 4 or 5 guys write all the music.
Do the writers usually give that up early on when, we're all teenagers? Yeah, man.
Sometimes.
Split it even, Steven, or do they know?
Sometimes. It depends. Now, sometimes what they'll do is they'll share it, but they want the credit. They still want it to sound like all the Rolling Stones songs say Jagger Richards because they write them together. But if they share in publishing, everybody still makes the money. And then what you see sometimes is all the guys who got ripped off back in the day, like Chuck Berry and all those guys, they negotiated away their publishing. And so sometimes it's some guy who never wrote a lick of music in his life. It gets the publishing credit, and he makes the money. Elvis always, his manager, Colonel Tom Parker, would say, hey, when you bring a song to me that George Garcia wrote, yeah, that's great. Elvis will record it, but you've got to give him a writing credit, so he gets the publishing. Dolly Parton almost let Elvis record I Will Always Love You, which eventually Whitney Houston did, but she didn't at the last minute because Colonel Tom Parker said you have to give him the writing credit, and she wouldn't give that up, and then Whitney Houston made her millions of dollars.
And, I had a friend that was, remember the original Drifters?
Oh, yeah.
And Johnny was one of the singers, but he got nothing.
Yeah.
In those days, they got nothing. They just didn't know they signed everything away.
Happened a lot back then. Yep.
Can you play some Drifters on day? Can you find anything? I know the
band.
Okay.
That's Yeah.
So you knew those guys, huh?
Yeah. Well, Johnny was a good friend of mine.
Damn, and he's broke now?
Broke, yeah.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah. Nothing, no royalties or nothing.
Yeah.
Here we go.
There it is.
That's a great tune.
Yeah. Right? I mean, imagine the amount of money that this generated. All the movies. That's another where you make money is if your song ends up in a movie or a TV show or something. Because then every time it plays, you get a little change. Paul Anka wrote the theme to The Tonight Show. And he talks about how he put 3 daughters through college just because every time, da-da-da-da-da, okay, there's another, quarter or whatever it was into the bank account. Yeah.
That's nuts. Those are like those residual checks you told us about.
Yeah, of course. Residual checks are great.
Did you know all that when you were an actor?
I knew nothing about. Well, I did.
You learned along the way. Did you have a mentor?
I didn't, but I learned real quick because when the first one I did, Play It to the Bone, they gave me a line. They didn't use it, but I got residuals. But when I did,
Wait,
Here Comes
gave you a line. You didn't say
it. Well, I said it, but they never. They never used it. You know. But when I did Here Comes the Boom with Kevin James, I told myself, when I got the script, I had no lines. I said, man, I got to figure something out. So when it was time for me and Kevin James to do our scene, he pulled me aside and he said, Stitch, we gotta have you do something, say something. So I thought that was nice of his part, So I'm playing the dumb
because
part.
of the residual part, or he was thinking just about the script,
because of the residual part.
Oh, and that was very cool.
That was very nice. He pulled me aside, and so I'm playing the dumb part. I said, well, here's what I tell the fighters: "He said, welcome to the UFC." Ah, that's great. So when my scene
then
comes,
you slapped him, right?
And then I slapped him and walked out. That was my $1 million line. So I still get residuals from them. I get it from Play It to the Bone. I just got Creed and Creed 2 just the other day.
So by some miracle, I ever am in the movie,
but
I don't say anything. I'm costing myself money by at least not having.
Well, no, you're scripted into saying something. And like on the last Creed 2, in the beginning of the movie, my lines were, all right, everybody out of the dressing room. But the producer or the director gave me the very simple lines.
Now, why
actor.
wouldn't they go, hey, let's keep salaries down, don't give him a line?
They probably do think of that.
No, they do. But, I came with a lot of extra knowledge. The referees, the judges, the announcers, all these guys, I told them what their positions were, how to do it, what to do. And, like when I first got there for one of the scenes where the Russian guy is knocking one of the guys out, they have extras. And the doctor picks the guy's head up and he puts the flashlight on him. And I told the director, no, that don't work because you don't know what kind of injury this guy has. You leave his head down, you examine his eyes, see how his pupils are doing. So they did a second shot. And but I think
so. You were like an advisor.
An advisor. Yeah. So I think through compensation, but I think I earned my stripes in that.
Did you know all that?
Yeah, I mean,
of
there's
course.
all kinds of little nuance to stuff like that that will take care of you down the line. Like you said, that's cool that Kevin James.
It was super, man.
Yeah.
But I was thinking ahead. I got to say something, even if I throw it in. But you see a lot of these extras try to throw little words in here and there and all that, but it has to be scripted.
And that's what gets cut out on the editing?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So you have to almost have the blessing to be able to sneak that one in.
Even that. If it's not in the script, if let's say you're an extra and you're yelling, come on, Rocky, come on, and they pick it up, but you're not in the script, well, you're not going to get compensated.
Why does that got so much value?
Because that's the way SAG and AFTRA have everything negotiated. Because those are your agents. I mean, well, they're not your agents, but they're your union.
Your union, right.
So they're looking out for you on stuff like that. And it wasn't always that way.
Yeah.
It was true trial and error. And just like music, like we talked about, people getting ripped off, Little Rascals, people like that didn't make anything for anything. And so over time, all that got negotiated. Another thing that happens is sometimes that stuff gets added in post-production. So, like, if we're shooting a scene and I'm going to go to the garage and get my car, and we get done filming the whole movie, and then they're in there editing, and they go, oh, my gosh, you know what? We didn't explain that Richard he just walks out, but we didn't explain that he was going to the parking garage. They'll call you back in, and then they'll wait till they have a shot of my back so you can't see my mouth moving, and I'll just dub in, I'm going to the parking garage, like that, so I can explain where I went. So there'll be lines added like that.
And it's funny because that happened to me with Balboa.
Oh, yeah?
And because I interviewed Mike Tyson years ago, and I said, every little fighter has that one little thing that nobody has. What is that one little thing? And he said very simply, take the pain. You have to take the pain. So during the fight when Rocky's fighting Antonio Tarver, Antonio Tarver hits Rocky and hurts his hand, and he sits down, and I tell him, oh, my hand. He's telling the coach, my hand. So I tell him, take the pain. Well, come the movie, just like you said, they got me from back here, but somebody else did the voiceover. Take the pain.
Yeah.
So, but that wasn't in the script. It's a great line. But
how about that?
Yeah. So
Hollywood's a little dirty, huh?
Yeah. There's always an angle. Yeah. There's always an angle and stuff like that.
That's funny. All right, thanks for sharing that. All right, really quick. Let's do this. The NFL training camps are open, and Fantasy Sports Radio is covering the fantasy football perspective. Listen to the best analysts for news about position battles, injuries, and which offenses you should be investing in. Hear player projections and rankings, plus live fantasy football expert drafts around the clock, on the only channel dedicated to fantasy football, Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radios, and that's on Sirius 210 XM87 and wherever you are with the Sirius XM app. All right, a couple things here. I have a few cuts if we want to continue the Cyborg Dana drama. We can do that. But I do want to talk a little bit about something I thought the three of us could chime in on that's pretty interesting. Apparently, Colby Covington has now landed in New Jersey, or he's been there for a few days now. He's going to be fighting Robbie Lawler this Saturday, 3 Eastern, noon Pacific on ESPN. It's a pivotal matchup. In the welterweight division. Covington, of course, is the former interim champion in the welterweight division, and he wants to get a crack at Kamaru Usman, and of course, Robbie Lawler is a former champion. Big fight. Anyway, he has done some interviews, and he has said that Donald Trump Jr. is going to attend the fights. I guess he's got a connection who knows Donald Trump Jr., and Donald Trump Jr. is going to go to the fights. Now, to me, that doesn't seem like a big deal. I'm not a Trump supporter. Everybody knows that. I don't know Trump Jr. too much, other than I see him and a guy named Michael Avenatti just tear each other up on Twitter all the time. I really don't know much about the fellow, but whatever. But boy, was this thing like popping on Twitter? You know, the fact that I guess the son of the president, do they call him the first son?
Yeah,
is going to be attending the fights. But is that? I mean, if Trump was going, I would understand. If a president is attending a fight, yeah, I would only imagine the chaos that would be to organize something like that. But the first son also rolls with secrets.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's going to be a big deal, right?
Yeah, just the fact that it'd probably be the first time I can think of that the UFC fight would have ever had Secret Service at it is going to cause a bit of a commotion.
Do you remember any of that when you
Never.
worked with them?
No. Who's ever been there that required Secret Service?
Yeah. No, it'd have to be either a current or a former, either president or high-ranking government official, like Secretary of State, something like that.
Colby sure knows how to play this game, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. I mean, to me, when you talk about, you mentioned WWE earlier, Stitch. Yeah. It's like, to me, that is signature WWE. Look, if he really believes all that stuff, that's fine. But I want to hear him articulate it. Like, I want to hear him articulate the merits of adding a $3 trillion to the deficit. Like, unless we're not getting into any of that, to me, it's very like heel manager. Yeah. No, I mean, I'm just saying if he really subscribes to this political ideology, that's fine. But I'd rather hear him talk about, because I think he doesn't. I think he just hits.
He's just playing the bass.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. He hits he pushes the buttons. So it's kind of like a pro wrestling manager walking out and going, Memphis is the dirtiest town I've ever been to. Boo! You don't really have any evidence to back that up. You're just playing a role and wearing the hat.
And it's funny because Kobe went to the Armed Forces Entertainment Tour with us. And, and throughout the whole tour was really the quietest of all.
Quiet,
super nice,
guy, right? Great with the troops.
Yeah, great, super giving and all that, and just 100% super. But then I look at him like the Chael Sonnen of what he's doing now, because Chael, behind the scenes, is a dynamite guy.
Yep.
Once you get him past that curtain, then you turn the Chael Sonnen, the marketing master.
It's hard to hate on him because I realize that it gets him attention. It's probably made him some money, and he's just hitting a certain base, and he's relentless. He's not letting up.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I'm not trying to change anyone's mind.
Yeah.
But I said the same thing like Stitch said. I went on a trip with him, spent a whole weekend with him.
What happened to Kobe?
Couldn't have been a nicer dude. You know what I mean? And he was great with the troops, and that's what I remember. I remember the times that he's come to this studio. But yeah, I mean, obviously I see him with the girls on Instagram and all the partying and all that, but I just think he learned how to play the game. That's all.
Well, maybe he's learning how to play the game. I think what you're trying to get at is he's doing it, but he's not good at what he does.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And
he could be better at it.
Yeah, and that's where you got to pick your theme. Some themes are deeper than others. I mean, if you're going to, get into politics that's, dividing a country, that's going to be a heavier subject matter than, I'm team Kim Kardashian as opposed to Khloe or something like that. He's probably not that much to argue in that realm. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Everything would be very superficial. But
I think he realizes that some of it's corny. I don't think he's trying to say I got this down to a T or nothing like that. But I think he relishes having that little escape so that he can be silly, or you know what I mean. I don't know. I
agree. No, I do think his way out of when it gets kind of like, oh, okay, well, tell us, pontificate on how you really think about all this. Then that's usually where he'll go to just kind of a joke to pull the ripcord and bail out of it. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Well, if you asked me to pontificate, I'd probably do the same thing. I don't even know what that means.
Oh yeah, I'd make you sorry you ever brought it up. We'd be hour and a half into the conversation, going, God, I got to get out of here.
What the hell is he talking about?
We are going to take a quick break. Ed Ruth is pretty close by, so I want to get the breaks out of the way. That way we can coast to the finish line with him. You're listening to MMA Junkie Radio on Fight Nation, Channel 156. Stay close. We'll be right back.
Warmed up. Now the real show begins. Take it away, boys.
I think Narcos is on season 4. It's complete. And I think season 5 is going to come out this year.
Yeah.
What would you rank these great Netflix shows versus television like Sopranos on HBO or the Showtime's had a couple great ones as well, and then also versus like regular television? Is this just like another level, or how have you
I
felt
liked
about
it a lot. Now the unique thing about Narcos is they killed off their main character a couple of seasons. It'd be like if The Sopranos, if Tony Soprano died a couple of seasons in, but it keeps going, and I've enjoyed it.
But that one's called Sopranos, so it'd have to be like AJ leading the crew.
Well,
I guess,
yeah,
like that. This one's not called Escobar; it's called Narcos. So yeah, any Narcos kind of fit into it a little bit.
But it is a big risk when you think about it. I mean, your main character for the first couple seasons, because now you're going to really kind of shake up the formula. But I enjoy it, and I have to read the subtitles. I can't.
You still watch it? You watch all 4 seasons?
I didn't know that the 4th season was on. I'm checking it out.
They did
tonight.
Escobar. Then they did the Cali Cartel, and then they went to Mexico.
Yeah.
So they've done 4. Yeah, you can binge watch on one of them overseas trips or something like that.
One of these guys that said he was going to be my agent had talked to the producer about having me on Narcos Mexico. Of course, that never happened, but that would have been nice.
Here's the one for you now, Stitch. Mayans.
Well, James
spin-off from Sons of Anarchy.
That's right. He's
it's funny because I get stopped all the time now because Edward James Olmos is back in the mix, right?
Yeah.
I sent him a text one day. I said, it's awesome when people stop me, take pictures, get autographs, and then they think I'm you.
Yeah.
And he replies, "Well, people are calling me Stitch."
Yeah.
But I get that all the time.
That's funny.
So,
Andre, play Chapo. This is the song for Chapo. I think it rivals Narcos. Listen, here it comes. Now I got to say something every once in a while, or YouTube will trip. But here you go.
Now, what is this?
This is the lead song to Chapo. Now, I know Stitch is probably not feeling it right away. The first couple times, I was like, what is this? What is this? Because I felt like Narcos was it. And then right here, this lady just starts singing. I'm like, oh, man, this is pretty cool, too. It's just, I don't know. I think it's right up there with the Narcos song. But this is the lead song to Chapo. Chapo's a great Netflix series.
I got to check that out.
Yeah.
It's like the movie Ghost Ship when that Italian girl was singing, remember?
Which one?
It was Ghost Ship.
No,
it's called
I've heard
Ghost
that
Ship.
one. Okay.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
I'll have to check that one out.
Side.
So you haven't seen Chapo at all?
No, I haven't.
I haven't seen it either.
No.
Really?
But I'm
Is this about El Chapo?
I just did you guys the best favor of all time because I think they're 3 seasons in, and it's really detailed. And it'll basically almost lead you into where he's at now, which is, I guess the trial just ended.
Yeah, he's in
and
prison
they extradited
for life
him from New York to Denver, I think, where we have the highest
the
security.
Supermax.
Right, but it'll basically take you pretty close up to that. But again, in great detail, and it kind of a little bit of an overlay of how the Mexican cartels work, and then you can kind of connect it to how things came over from Colombia, and a lot of things were run from Colombia until the Mexicans said, well, wait a minute, we're the ones crossing it over. We want a piece of this pie, you know what I mean? And that's why a lot of the power.
I just hope at Supermax eventually El Chapo and the Unabomber become cellmates, At first they don't like each other.
Who's
but
in
then
there?
they find some commonality. The
Unabomber's in there?
Yeah, he could learn
What
a
about
little.
Timothy McVeigh?
Oh, he's dead.
Yeah, he's
he
dead.
was
is it?
there.
Okay.
Yeah. He was there, and then they cleared him
So
out.
you'd have them trade skills?
Yeah, Unabomber learned a little Spanish. El Chapo would come to understand the danger of technological advancements and the thrill of writing wordy manifestos. And next thing you know, you got a buddy comedy.
Let me see. What's it called? It's the Supermax in Colorado, right?
Yeah.
Let's see if they have a list of who's
Inmates.
in there.
Famous ones. I think there's some terrorists in there,
Here's
too.
a list of former inmates.
Okay.
I'm not shocking anybody when I say Omar Rahan. I never Roman. Joseph Duncan, Salvatore Gravano.
Sounds
Sal
like a
Gravano.
mob
That's-
guy.
Yeah,
Sounds like a
underboss
mob
of
guy.
the Gambino crime
Okay.
family. Ronald Greisacker, Clement Hampton, Charles Harrelson, Yu Kikumura, David Lane, John Walker Lind, John McCullough. Boy, this. Oh, there it is.
John Walker Lind was the American Taliban guy.
Really?
Yeah, that was the American that they found fighting with the Taliban.
Mhm.
Yep. Who else?
Timothy McVeigh. I
Yeah.
did get to him.
Yep.
I thought this was gonna. Okay, Mohammed Al Moyad. He was an Al Qaeda associate, convicted 1995. Okay, no, I thought that was the World Trade Center.
Oh, it might be the original.
No,
World
the
Trade
Empire
Center.
State Building. Didn't they have a blow up?
No, the World Trade Center did.
Was it?
But like way back, there was a
basement of the
bomb.
World
Yeah,
Trade Center.
in the basement,
bomb. Yeah, bomb in the basement.
Yeah, Anthony Casso. He was the underboss of the Lucchese family. Ociel Cardenas Guillen. He is the leader of the Gulf Cartel. So that's like Cancun.
Yeah.
I did recognize that name. I thought there would be more like notable names or something like that.
Yeah. No Unabomber on there? Ted Kaczynski not still there?
I didn't see that. Oh, that was former. So let me see.
Oh, okay.
Current inmates. All right, and you tell us, Richard, on your side. We already kind of got a layout of what Stitch has coming up. What's coming up for you and Frank? Any big episodes planned out, or any of the comedy shows? Or
we'll be doing. Sure, we'll be doing a new episode of Phone Booth Fighting tomorrow, taping as we typically do. Those come out. We tape them on Wednesdays. They usually come out on Thursdays. I'll be doing stand-up comedy at the Stratosphere this Sunday night at the LA Comedy Club, 8 p.m. show. If anybody wants to come out, just tell me they're a listener to MMA Junkie, and I'll be happy to put you on the guest list. You never know, Frank might come out. You know, Frank has done.
I saw him do it once.
Yeah,
has he done it more than once?
Yeah, he's done it now. I'd say 6 or 7 times.
That's
he gets
really?
up and does a stand-up. Yeah, and he's pretty good.
Is he getting the itch?
He is pretty good. Yeah, he. It's funny. He's so competitive in just life, right? That even with stand-up, he's competitive. Like, he wants to be better. He watches his tape. How did I do? I can move these words around, you know. And I also always give him a great introduction whenever I bring him on. This is something I don't say about other stand-up comics. I always say, just a word of warning to the audience, you don't have to laugh, but you are going to see them on your way out. So keep it in mind, you know. Yeah. Yeah,
all right.
so get that.
So here's a couple names. Sammy Gravano. Remember Sammy
Yeah.
the
The
Bull
Bull.
Gravano?
Yeah.
This guy was, I think, one of the Gambino guys. He was associated
he's
with.
the finked on
Who's the
everybody.
Teflon?
He's the one who testified
John
against
Gotti.
John Gotti. Yeah.
Right, and then he went to Arizona,
Yeah,
and
he
if
went-
that wasn't enough, he got caught for ecstasy ring
Yeah.
or something like that. Now he's not getting out. Apparently, he's
Yeah.
there
Dummy.
with
Yeah.
with Guzman. But that guy had balls. You know, you'd think if I had a mob family looking for me, you'd kind of keep that low profile, right? If you already went the route of being a rat or whatever. Tyler Bingham. Why is that name familiar?
I don't know him.
Tyler Bingham? I don't know. And then there's just a lot of other names that might be more familiar from the sports book. He's lost. Hopefully we see him soon. We're almost running out of time.
Oh, Ed Ruth?
Ed Ruth.
He's here. He's lost somewhere in
Yeah, he's coming to the
Mandalay Bay.
studio.
Okay.
Oh,
Wait,
there
that's
he
him
is.
right
Okay,
there. He
there we go.
comes.
All right, so we'll have to blast through this real fast, and then maybe we can do a quick little video with him. This is Ed Ruth, folks. Fights for Bellator. Actually, we'll let him sit down. You have his mic ready to go, Richard?
I do.
All right.
Yep.
Have a seat, Ed Ruth. All right, how you doing?
How you doing?
How you doing? This is Richard.
Hey, Ed. Good to see you. How's it going? Good to see you.
All right. So we'll have you have a seat real fast. We just have a couple minutes left, but we're really glad you showed up. I was talking to your wife yesterday. Your face was familiar, but I wasn't sure, and then she confirmed. She goes, "Yeah, that's Ed Ruth," and I was like, "Yeah, Penn State, 3-time national champion, 7-1 fighter for Bellator." If you can move your mic down, it was great to see you at Extreme Couture. And welcome to MMA Junkie Radio.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
All right, so you just came off a win, right? And you're 7-1. Do you already know what's next, or are you kind of just in between fights?
Honestly, I really do not know. I really want to have a quick turnaround after this fight. You know, I felt like they had me on ice for about 7 months, and I was like, man, I really want to start getting after it after this.
3-time national champ. That's like godly, you know, in the wrestling world. There's a lot of kids that grow up and they just want to stand at the podium as an All-American. And, of course, if one of them's lucky enough to be the champ, great. But 2-time and then 3-time. How many 3-time champs have there ever been in the history? I'm sure you know that fact, right?
In the history of Penn State?
No, in the history of NCAA. Can that be more than a dozen?
By the time when I did it, it was about 25, I think.
25? Okay.
Yeah.
I
think it jumped up
Jake
a little bit.
Rochalt did it, right? Yeah, from Oklahoma State. But, yeah, that's pretty amazing. How did you do the fourth year, whether it was your freshman or senior? I really don't know.
It was the freshman year.
Freshman year?
Freshman year.
How far did you get then?
I made it to third. Actually, I injured my knee, and that was a factor. But honestly, I had this one kid that I wrestled. His name was Nikamucha from Stanford. And honestly, I could say I had an injury knee. It was a factor, but he was undefeated until we wrestled again next year in the finals.
So you're not offering it as an excuse or nothing like that?
No. Honestly, he was the better wrestler that day.
Okay. Now, what's your situation like at Bellator? How many fights do you have left in your contract? Are you a free agent? What's your deal?
Well, kind of caught me off guard right there. I really don't know how many fights left, but I just say, hey, give me a fight, and I'll just fight it out, and then we figure it all. We settle up in the end. But right now it's But yeah, honestly, I've been enjoying it. Bellator has been fun.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we were talking about it with Stitch. Chris Cyborg is a free agent. She used to work with Scott Coker. What would you say to a fighter that's looking to maybe test the waters of Bellator versus staying with the UFC? What does Bellator offer that's made you a happy camper over there?
Honestly, I just feel like the people work with me pretty well. And again, this is the first time I've ever worked with an organization, so you can't really take my word on it. But honestly, working with these people, it's like I feel like they're easy to work with. You know, we have like great communication. I feel like it's like they're like, hey, this is on this date. This was what's going to happen. Hey, can you do interviews? Everything's kind of like really organized, and I really respect that.
Well, not only that, but then you get the opportunity to get sponsors.
Yeah, exactly
right?
that.
You know, and that's why a lot of the guys have made that transition from the UFC going into Bellator or PFL and all that. Sponsors make a lot of money.
Yeah, that's true.
So
now that Grand Prix is almost over, is there talk about doing another one, or are these one-time things? Have you ever heard anything behind the scenes?
No. I got my ears to the ground too, and I didn't hear anything. So, but honestly, if they do have another one, I'm still game, man. I still want to jump in another one.
Do you want to fight Gracie again, or are you able to just compartmentalize and a loss is a loss? Like, do you need to fight him again at some point in your career?
Loss is a loss, but if it does come down that I need to fight him again, then yeah, of course I want to fight him again. You know, It's like honestly, nobody likes to have a loss on their record and then can't actually redeem themselves. But you know, if I don't have to fight him, then you know it's whatever. Honestly, for me, whatever pulls my career forward is all I'm about.
You know, and I personally think in MMA now the tournament system is what's in right now. That's what they're drawing the fans back into watching these guys fight because everybody wants to see champions and how they're created as they go down the line.
And that cool million
and that makes a lot of money for these
The heavyweights missed out on it.
Cool
the welterweights got it. You know, the featherweights,
convincing.
they got to go 16 deep, not 8 like you guys. They're going 16 deep, but $1 million awaits the winner. AJ McKee and
whoever
Pitbull,
wins it at that weight deserves it, man.
Yeah, that is Murderer's Row over there. Yeah, all right. Well, listen, we are going to wrap up the serious portion here, but I'll see if we can keep you over for a couple questions. Hopefully you're not too tired from practice. Were you at Extreme Couture again today?
Yeah, we was over there.
Yeah. Is this going to be a permanent move to Vegas, or are you still figuring that out?
No, just out here checking out the scene, just kind of seeing how everything is out here.
I was telling your wife, no state taxes.
I know, I've heard
and
that.
you're in San Jose. In San Jose, no disrespect, Stitch, but NorCal takes a bite out of your ass,
big,
man.
especially Northern California.
Right? The cost of living?
Of course.
An 800 square foot room can cost you like $2,000. I mean,
Come on, man.
It's up there.
I gotta drive back, man. You're not making this drive any easier.
Well, you know, I'm just trying to kick the knowledge about Vegas. I'm from California, so I know what it is. That's why I got no ass. They took a piece out of it.
Oh,
but here in Vegas, no state taxes. The cost of living's low.
You already know how it is.
The traffic is almost non-existent.
Food 24 hours a day. I've been here 23 years. Okay, I came in from Oakland. Came to do this.
I mean, like, just Las Vegas already justified itself to me, you know.
All right, I want to thank our guests for today, Ed Ruth, who popped in right here, and we'll see if we can spend a few minutes with him after the show. Also, earlier today, we had Jeff Periotti. Hopefully I got his name right. And tomorrow we're going to have Al Iaquinta and Jordan Johnson. So, folks, we will see you all tomorrow. Thanks, guys, for co-hosting. Goes will be back. Go out there and be a champion. Andre, can you tape us for like a 5-10 minutes?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. All right.
I'll record
let me
here
make,
too.
let me just set everything up.
Just fix
Okay,
the
yeah, we're
cameras
good.
real quick.
All right. Thanks, Andre. Give me 1 second, Andre. Richard's just going to focus on something right there. That way it's not just a bam, bam, you know what I mean? Might as well get a little bit more here since you're here. But thanks for stopping by, seriously.
Yeah, no problem.
That was cool to see you there at Extreme yesterday.
You were there yesterday?
Yeah, I was there, and your wife and your boy were sitting in front of me, and then another lady. We were all just watching, and we started talking amongst all of them. And I saw you check in to Extreme Couture earlier. And right then and there, I thought I had already recognized you, but I asked her, I go, what's his name again? And as soon as she said it, I go, yeah, from Penn State, you know what I mean? But
it's that weight loss, man. It's like every time my weight fluctuations, sometimes my face looks fatter and skinnier. So it's kind of harder. Like, that's the thing about being an MMA fighter people don't understand. Like, unless you have, like, a very distinguishable hairstyle, unless you, like, if you cut a lot of weight, people are not going to recognize you when you're fat.
Like Liddell, no one's gonna not recognize him, right?
Exactly. He has a little haircut. But, I mean, like, if you saw Anderson Silva, I've seen some pictures of him. He's, like, you know, he balloons up.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
All right, we ready to go?
Yeah.
All right. You ready, Andre?
Ready.
All right, here we go with a little bit of MMA Junkie Radio overtime. We got Ed Ruth here in the house, Bellator welterweight, former Nittany Lion, 3-time national champion over there. So I want to get one question out of the way that I always ask the in-studio guests. Can you share a good street fight story with us?
Oh, street fights. Here we go. Get the tape running.
I have not been in a lot of street fights. I'll be honest with you. I have been a very peaceful person. The only street fight that I do remember, I remember that I don't remember it because
Somebody knocked you out?
Huh?
Somebody knocked you out?
No, honestly, I remember that I could not get knocked out, and that's why the cops got called. But all I remember is I got picked up.
Oh, you went into a zone?
I went into a zone.
So what happened? Set it up. Was this like at a fraternity party or something?
How old were you?
It's usually the wrestlers against the frats, right?
Yeah. Honestly, no. This was in college.
Okay.
So I was in college. I was at the Young Jeezy concert. So, I was getting amped up for the night already.
Right.
And obviously, I pregame. Already had my night started. So I get to this club. Somehow I find myself outside the club. So I'm just kind of wandering around D.C. because I'm in Washington, D.C. at the time. And next thing I know, I'm in front of this bar. I have no wallet, no ID. And next thing I know, I'm scrapping with a lot of people. Nobody's on my team.
You don't remember how it got started?
Well,
he was partying.
Oh, okay.
I didn't want to say it, but
that's why he was walking around.
Wow, you were really blitzed. Okay.
But yeah, pretty much I lost my way, and so I'm in front of this bar. Next thing I know, a scrap breaks out. Nobody's on my side, and I'm getting booked. So, and
how many people were you fighting?
I heard. I called back to the bar, and I just heard it was a brawl down. It was maybe 15 people there.
Ah, you're a legend then.
And I was at the door.
Yeah.
And they didn't know who you were, obviously.
Thank God they didn't. Thank God they didn't know who I was. But
this wasn't in the day of World Star and all that, right? Yeah.
No, it could have been though. The way people were describing it. But all I know is the next day my jaw was hurting and I had no shoelaces, no belt, and I had to walk back to the police station to get all those items.
Were all 4 of your years under Cale Sanderson?
Yeah.
Okay, but this never came to light.
Never came to light.
Have you ever shared this story before?
Now it's the light.
Oh.
Play this for select people.
How is it
giving you a call in a bit?
How is it being part of Cale Sanderson, what he built at Penn State? I mean, this guy's must be? Is he pretty intense or is he laid back? How would you categorize him and the whole culture of the program? Because what you guys have done is simply amazing.
Yeah.
Well, honestly, it was great. Yeah. You got to understand my side of the story too, because it's a little bit strange. I didn't actually go there for Cale. I was recruited by the coach before him.
Okay.
And then that guy got fired, and then Cale came in. So I'm like, okay. Next thing I know, I had this legendary coach, and the whole time I was there, I figured out why he was legendary. What made him different, he was he just brought kind of that air of authority with him into the practice room. He was able to look at somebody and be like, okay, I need you to practice. And, kids look at him and take him serious. Because a lot of times when you get to college, sometimes the coaches are the friends with the college students.
Yeah.
He was able to keep that a very definite line of, I am your coach, and you listen to what I say, and just aside from that, the air in the room was super competitive. Everybody was competitive. You go in that room, they'd be like, okay, we're just gonna drill and then we're gonna do live wrestling for about 30 minutes, and we'll drill and then we'll start doing live wrestling, and you'll find some guys going for 45 minutes. They would just keep going non-stop, and one guy sees the other guys, what? I'm Penn State too. They go for 45 minutes, and it was just like one guy drove the other person. So it was like iron sharpens iron the whole time. Even if it was a heavyweight, little lightweight guy would see it, and they would jump on board. And I was one of those guys. I would do push-ups after practice. I'll see other guys start doing push-ups after practice. Like everything was infectious in that room.
Wow. And you guys, is it 8 out of 9 or 8 straight or something like that Penn State has won?
I know.
That's quite a run. I know that.
Man, I should know this, huh? I don't pay attention to this stuff. Yeah, I really don't know. I just know that the year that we were there, we racked up 4, and then after that, was it 2? And then they lost one to Ohio.
Yeah.
And then, yeah.
So his coach is one of the few that went undefeated in college, and then he also won a gold medal. And I think along the way, he took out Daniel Cormier in wrestling, but he lost to Yoel Romero on the international level. But, yeah.
I've got the championship streak. It was 2011 to 2014, and then again 2016 to 2019.
Oh.
Man, that's crazy.
Yeah, they had a good, strong run in there.
Yeah. MMA, are you in love with it, or does it just pay the bills? Like, how would you quantify it in terms of, like, probably the love you had for wrestling?
Oh, I love it. Honestly, when I was doing wrestling, I didn't really care about wrestling. Like, I love the sport because I work hard, and I understand, like, what it takes to actually stay in wrestling, and that was one. Like, I respected it more than I liked it. MMA, I love it. It's awesome. It's like you got so many disciplines, so much stuff to pay attention to. It's like I'm not just an athlete. I'm somebody. I have to be smarter than an athlete. It's like I got to be able to blend so many disciplines together and then go out to the cage and then show everybody like, hey, look at my shit. This is what I got for you. You know what I mean? That's so different. Because like when I wrestle. You go out there and you do like one sport, one discipline. But when I do MMA, it's like I can find. It's like a sport that's still like you can still discover ways to hit people, different ways to take someone down, different ways to submit someone.
Yeah, you see people just doing these wicked elbows now, or spinning elbows.
Everything's different.
Jumping off cages.
If you show somebody different, like when Anderson Silva did that drop one and then came up from like from 6 to 12. Nobody saw that on feet. And it's like you can keep changing things and finding different ways to, even though it's essentially just hurting people, but it's like it shows you how deep somebody's arsenal is. It shows you how much thought actually goes into the sport. Because I've seen a lot of guys fighting, man. It's like you could tell when somebody just started MMA. You could tell somebody's been fighting MMA for a while.
Yeah, we were just talking earlier. I interviewed Mike Tyson years ago, and I said, Mike, every fighter has that one little thing that nobody has. What is that one little thing? And very simply, he says, take the pain. You have to take the pain. But as you look at your whole lifestyle going through that, because your family, well, number one, your training, there's pain. Your fights, obviously, there's pain. The family supporting you, there's pain. The financials, there's pain. There's all kinds. So my question to you, in college, you were a wrestler. You consider yourself a gladiator now? Because I look at you guys and say, these guys are modern-day gladiators.
Definitely.
And that's exactly what you guys are.
Like, definitely. Because, I mean, like, all we do, we take pain, deliver pain, but as I've seen it throughout life, pain is the ultimate teacher.
Yeah.
How do you learn anything? You learn it through pain. You learn it through accidents. You got to get hurt somehow, some way. And, being an MMA fighter,
you just make that up? Pain is the ultimate teacher? I like that.
That's good, huh?
Yeah.
Well, I'm learning a lot. I'm learning a whole lot. If you're ever up at Extreme Couture about 7 a.m., I need some serious help with my wrestling. So, yeah.
Well, two things. That boy was the star of the show yesterday. I mean, we all got a kick. He was entertaining us. He was high-fiving, smiling, and everything. So
he's a ball of energy, man.
He was cool. And two, I was talking to I was texting one of the coaches at Extreme Couture. I was like, that was Ed Ruth that was there. And he was like, I thought it was him. He goes, man. He goes, I wasn't sure. He goes, that dude worked hard. Because they had a hard practice yesterday, it was a bunch of stuff, but they had a lot of nice things to say about you.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool, man.
So I don't know if the plan is to move here or if you're just testing out the Vegas waters or what, but
testing out the waters.
Yeah. Do you like Vegas as a city?
I do.
Yeah.
Honestly.
What do you like the most?
The gentlemen's clubs, of course.
Oh man!
Oh, look at her eyes. She just shot you with lasers.
Yeah, I know. I'm about to call Lyft.
Wow, that caught me off guard. Yeah.
But honestly, I just love Vegas as a city because it just I don't know. It has a good vibe to it. Usually, there's cities where you go to and you just feel trapped. there's other cities that you go to, you know, and you're just like, okay, there's a lot going on. I can't really keep up with it. But like here, I just feel like Vegas is it's just a cool place to be.
Yeah.
And honestly, you guys have a lot of, what do you call them, dispensaries.
Yeah.
That's very important.
Yeah.
That's a big plus.
That's big business now. They look like little shopping malls.
Yep.
Yeah, and they're everywhere now too.
Everywhere.
Open 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm sure Stitch can write a list for you.
Yep, I was there
His
today.
favorite-
I already
favorite
hit up a
spots.
couple today.
You know, it's funny because everybody knows me. Everybody gives me samples. I got so much shit. I can pass them around.
You
Oh,
need to
really?
get a-
You gotta bring it in, man.
Yeah, I do.
Show and tell.
Hey, get a stand
Show
live.
and share.
I do. I shared it out.
You know what, Stitch? You got to talk one of these dispensaries into naming a strain after you.
Well, you know what?
That's-
that would be awesome.
There's a
Good idea.
company that now just created a cream for cuts.
Yes.
That has CBD, has stem cell, collagen, vitamin E, and so at the last bare knuckle fights, I gave it to a couple fighters, Johnny Bedford, one of them, and they used it, you know, for the healing process.
Oh, bare knuckle fight. That's a
yeah,
good place to go.
bare knuckle fights. I mean, what better guys to practice on than these guys?
they'll let
you know. So, but yeah, that's been thrown out. You know.
Yeah.
Did you see Cyborg and that elbow she took, and she got cut up as well?
I missed it. No.
Yeah, they were talking about, you know, not just the Vaseline, but I guess the Vaseline's mixed.
Well,
with
you mix it with adrenaline chloride, 1000. Yeah.
Yeah, and that
well,
can
the
shut
good
down.
ones do.
Yeah.
You know, and so.
Wow, there's a whole
But yeah,
science to it.
But yeah, there's a whole science to everything. But yeah, but that's CBD is the big thing now. I know the UFC is now just joined up with a company in Canada where they're going to be doing studies on recovery and
It's actually
pain
funny
and all
you
that.
say that because
Yeah.
I want to get a strain named after my name. I want to go indica, sativas, and hybrids, man. I'm getting that out there.
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
trying to
you know
get
your
all
stuff.
of them. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What would you call the strain? Something along the easy line? Or
Oh man, I would have to call it easy something.
3 times?
Easy breeze, easy.
How about 3 times?
3 times. Now
Three
you
easies.
All you need is one, man. It's just called one hit, huh?
That's
the
crazy.
easy strain.
All right. Well, hey, thanks for making time to come out
It
here
was also coming
and
out.
hang out with us. And if you do wind up staying down here, hopefully we can get you back to co-host an episode like the guys did today with us.
Yeah, of course.
In the meantime, whatever your next fight booking is, we'd love to preview that fight. Whenever you have it dialed in, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Are you thinking 2019?
Of course.
Okay.
I'm trying to get
Any names out there you want to throw out? Or who you want to fight? Daly, MVP, or?
Oh man, just about anybody. There's Melvin Manoev. There's MVP. There's Rory. You know, the guy who holds the belt.
Yeah. Well, Rory's got Lima. We know that.
He
yeah.
has Lima. You know, I'll even take a rematch. You know, I'm not scared to face somebody that I've lost to before. You know, just to show that I've overcome some boundaries, some limitations.
Well, that's what happened the freshman year, right? You came back sophomore year and won.
Yeah, exactly. So you know, obviously, I love going against people that I fought before. But you know, and honestly, anybody they want to throw my way, I keep telling them I'm ready for anybody.
How are
That's
your
what's
hands?
up.
Oh,
throwing
my hands
hands.
are good. They're beautiful.
Yeah, you got hands. Huh?
This is a wrestler with 7 KOs.
So
7 or
that says
6
a
or
lot,
something
yeah.
like that, right?
6.
Yeah. So,
Impressive.
yeah. There's a lot of wrestlers that take a while to get there.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's what I was asking. How's your
I think Ben Askren
Oh,
will get
we
there in
know that.
about,
I
in
love
about a
the
decade.
sweet science.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
what they
yeah.
all call it, the sweet science.
yeah.
Follow him on Twitter. I got it right here. Where'd it go? At, where is it? Easy. Edruth67. There you go. Edruth67. Thanks, Ed, for stopping by.
Yep.
Folks, we are out of here. Thanks, Andre the Giant, back east, for doing the overtime. Staying with you, Richard. Appreciate you guys. That's it. It's a wrap.
Cool.